Welcome back for another video. So, got a little bit of sleep, had a bunch of stuff to do this morning, and now I'm back on track. Had a lot more thoughts and plans in my head about how to solve the mini DSP and transducer problem, and I think I've got it figured out. So we're gonna try that. Got a couple more things in here. So these are the original tinted dots that you saw me apply. Very cool, they worked great. These are the blackout version. So when you just don't want any light, they're basically, just solid black vinyl stickers. Again, ridiculously overpriced, $8, but they work. They work and they look great, so I can't complain about the function. Now this was just something too cool that I hadn't tried before, and you know what, I'm gonna have some uses for it. It looks just like the loom that I use for making speaker wires, right? You guys, if you've seen those videos, you know what to do with those. But this has a secret. This is not a solid. It's actually split and coiled, and it's spring-loaded. So you can apply it to any cable, even pre-mades. You just open up the channel, put it around your cable, cut it to length, singe the end just like a regular one, and you've got your beautiful braided cover over any kind of cable you want. This is only a couple bucks. I'll put it down in the description. Yoo-hoo! One other quick thing here just before I get into setting up the new workflow. I don't know if it's just the nature of the beast with cantilever shelves, or maybe it's this particular shelf or the rails. I don't know. I don't have experience with it, but it sags in the back. Maybe it's because I've got all the weight in the back. There's really nothing in the front, but you can see that it dips down and it's secure. I mean, all 4 bolts are there. If anything, it looks like it should be the other way, but I've tightened them, and they're tight. I don't want to strip out the little nut things, but anyway, they move. This one too. So I think it's just the nature of the beast. Anyway, I've got this vacuum cap, happens to be the right size, and all I'm gonna do is stick it under here, prop it up. I don't want it to restrict the airflow of the processor. I noticed I walked over here and wafting warm air. I didn't have the fans on because I got the side off here, but then I looked down here. I wanted to see if it was the amp or the processor heating up, and it was the processor. So that's when I noticed the shelf dip here, but we'll take care of that. So here's the plan. Originally, 2 mini DSPs, transducers going through the bottom, subs through the top. So I'm not gonna be using the bottom mini DSP. That's okay, I'm not gonna return it, not gonna sell it, because if they do give us a dedicated transducer output in the future in Dirac Live, it will come in very handy. Or if I add more subs, or add more transducers, or anything I need more inputs for discrete devices, I can use it. So it's just gonna sit there, that's fine. What we're gonna do is take the transducer output, and we're not gonna be looping and patching through anymore, so I can get rid of this RCA cable. And we're gonna take the transducer, and it's gonna come out, mini DSP1, and it's gonna be fed a copy of the furthest sub, which should be this left one. This is the baseline of all the measurements. This is a 0 delay device. So when Dirac does its measurements, it finds whatever device is the farthest away, that's going to be the reference. That's going to be the 0 delay, right? So in essence, in the room, if you're using a Denon, Marantz, Yamaha, whatever, it measures in feet, distance away. That's the lowest common denominator, right? So that's going to be the baseline, and anything closer is going to get delay. Because if the signal is played at the same time, like say here, if a signal comes out of these at the same time, this is going to hit first. So this needs delay to back it up. So the signal comes from here, virtually, right? So this ties into the problem because I'm running a wireless kit in the transducers, and they need further delay because there's a 18 millisecond delay just for the signal to travel between the transmitter and receiver and go through that amplifier and come out the transducers. So in effect, that is just over 20 feet farther than even this sub. The problem is anything in the mini DSP, any delay, any EQ, any processing whatsoever, Dirac doesn't know about. So you can't do anything there that would mess up any of the measurements. But here's what we can do. I can add the same delay, which works out to 18 milliseconds, 20.2 feet is what it works out to, 18 milliseconds. I'm going to add that to the signal going to the sub. So in effect, we're going to tell Dirac that this is another 20.2 feet away, but it's not really. It's just thinking it is because we're going to add it in the output in the mini DSP. So then when it measures the rest of the system, it's still going to add the appropriate relative delay of everything else. So let's say, for example, this got a 5 millisecond delay. This was 0, this was 5. Well, this is going to be a further 18, but so is this. But Dirac is still going to start it at 0. It doesn't care that that is 18 in it. It just thinks it's farther away. And likewise, it'll think this is farther away. But the transducers aren't going to have any delay on it. The signal is going to come into it and go right out to it. It'll hit that 18 millisecond delay in real life. And it will be perfectly matched up to this with the artificial 18 millisecond delay. That's the plan anyway. Now I've just got to set all of it up in mini DSP and test the theory. Well, isn't this lovely? I can't even log in to freaking Dirac. And of course, you need not only a net connection, but their servers to be up apparently to even use the software. It took about 3 minutes for it to finally log in, just sitting there. Okay, paused and shut down. I'm sitting here and I see the whole front door whoosh, flash, and then kaboom, struck right across the street. Big old thunderstorm just rolled in, so I got everything unplugged. Oh, and while I'm waiting, I forgot to mention, sold the amp already less than 24 hours to a very happy camper. He actually had bought a couple of my previous SVS subs, and him and his wife are both in love with those, he told me. So he got a great deal on that, and that's been gone. So now I just have the receiver left. I've got it listed for 900 bucks. But if you're watching this video and you tell me you saw this video, I'll give it to you for 800 bucks. Gotta be local though, I'm not shipping that beast. Okay, back in business. I verified which sub is which, so I can map everything out. Sub 1 in the system is the right one. I could swap the wires if I cared, but it doesn't make any difference. Just needed that info to map what I'm going to tap into for the transducers. So input 2, which is the left sub, which is the baseline 0, is going to get the base signal and it's going to hit the butt kicker. So then in the output for left sub, let me verify that's the correct one. That's the right sub. Did I hit the wrong one? Oh yeah, I did. Should be this one here. And now we can verify that we've got everything where we want it. I've got sub 2, which is the left one here. Play a test, check in the mini DSP. I've got it mapped right here. Input 1. Technically, I guess I should switch that to input 2 just for cohesion, but it doesn't really make a difference. And we can see that we're getting signal where we want it. One's going to the butt kickers, one's going to the sub. Wonder why that doesn't show as quick on that as that. I'll have to double check everything in here. But we have an 18 millisecond delay. Maybe that's what's doing it. I've never checked that to see. Let's see what it does. No, that wasn't it. Well, what else is causing that? I don't have anything else turned on. Everything's should be default bypassed. Shouldn't have a compressor on. That's weird. No crossover. Oh, it's because I have a crossover set for here. So that's interesting. The output is actually showing the output signal. That's cool. Yeah, I've just got a real narrow crossover set up just for the transducer signal. Oh, interesting. Never noticed that before. Okay, so now let me put this delay back in before I forget. We should be ready to test and at least see if my theory holds water. Again, I'm just going to do a quick test, one panel of tests, and not looking for any kind of actual results. I just want to get to the end and then check out all the delays in the web UI. And that completed. Okay, now I just want to wait for this to finish and just save a filter real quick and go back in. What we should see is the sub still at 0 and everything else boosted by 18 from what it was. Hello? What are you doing? That was weird. Okay. Now, let's do a refresh and see if we have 2 in the slot. Where'd the EQ go? Room EQ. Oh, wrong screen. Room EQ. Am I blind? That's not showing anything. Okay, refresh. Not showing anything. Let's try another input. Well, what the hell? That's a new bug. It's not showing anything in there. Did I miss something in Dirac? Filter transferred to slot 2. It's ready to be used on your home theater speaker, which is what it calls a JBL. Okay, what am I missing? Just a freaking bug, man. Just had to go to another screen and back in. Total joke. There's 2. Okay, now I want to see distances, which should have converted from feet to milliseconds. And holy crap, it worked. We got channel 16 showing at 0, 18.88 on the other sub. Okay, I got in one good proper test, just one position. Again, not doing a full calibration. What I want to do is get through this with a normal measurement and just test a couple scenes to make sure that the delay is in sync between the transducers and the subs. And I want to make sure that it just sounds proper. I'm just going to throw on some music real quick. There are a few people that said that this is just giving really whacked out results and turning Dirac off is a lot better. But most people say, wow, it's fantastic. I don't know, I haven't heard it yet. But let's go in here. Yes, I want to proceed. No. When I do this later on, it's probably going to have to be Monday while the wife is at work because I just can't get quiet time. I barely squeezed in that one run. There's just too many things making noise today. These silent cabinet fans are doing a good job, by the way. They are exhausting warm air. You can barely hear them back at the seat. And if the AC is running, you can't hear them at all. Tiny bit of suction down at the bottom. I'm surprised. Didn't expect to feel anything with a lot of vents open, but a little bit. Cool. Aha. So after I did the calculation, now I'm seeing all the predicted results. And looks pretty stinky with a crossover of 70. I usually ran 90. Sometimes, depending on the filter I was using, for the subs, 80 would work okay, but 90 gave really good results, at least for the mains. I've never been able to test things individual like this. So I bumped it up to 80 and I'm recalculating to see what it does. And by the way, yes, I totally expect to see suboptimal results because I only did the one measurement. Remember, that's not what I'm looking for here. Just want to get through this. I'm just doing this out of curiosity at this point. But I don't want some huge null when I'm trying to listen. So that's a definite improvement, going from 70 to 80. Now I've still got that null up there about 95. I usually saw something around there in REW also. So 90 is about the same. Anyway, this is good enough to just do some quick listening tests and see what happens. And of course, that will change as I apply a house curve. This is the standard, which nobody should be using anyway. So I'm not worried about that not going away with some tweaking. I'm sure that'll go away. I got very different results in REW with different kinds of house curves. So you have to play with it. You have to experiment. But let's finally turn on some freaking music again. And I just noticed on the front of the display, it's been about 30 seconds since I pressed save, that it is giving you an indication that it's still saving. That's why it didn't show up in the web UI right away. So check out your front display, and when that says good to go or back to whatever it was displaying, it should show up in the web UI, I bet. Well, then again, maybe not. I've been waiting about 2 minutes and it still says saving, and that's longer than it was before. Refresh didn't do anything, so something is up. So I went back in, and this time I'm trying to save it to slot 3 with a new name. Maybe it was an overwrite problem, or maybe it was because I had closed Dirac before it was actually done. I don't know, but it said here this: you've completed the process and it's ready to be used. So I closed it. That shouldn't be a problem. Up there it says Dirac measurement. Now it says something else. What does that say? Dirac receiving. So I'm gonna leave this open. I think that was the problem. I think this message is just plain wrong. And it should say something like, look at your front panel, and when it says ready, it's ready. Now it says saving again, and that's what it was stuck on. Now before, it only took like 15, 20 seconds before I noticed it pop in. Let's see how long this takes. Oh, see, there we go, done. And there's our new filter. So I'm gonna apply it to the shield so I can check Plex. Couple scenes there, and net, which is AirPlay. Don't lock up again, thank you. And that's so I can just test a couple tracks streaming from my phone real quick. I don't have the Fire TV set up yet, so that's what I usually stream from in HD. Okay, now let's make sure that it took. So we'll go to this section and come back. It took. Verify that the shield took. Oh, come on. It's seriously a crapshoot. Pun intended. Total crapshoot. Go back. Now you're totally locked up. It did correctly switch to the shield. It says shield. But the web UI is dorked, so let's do a refresh. Getting kind of tired of this, I tell you. Cannot change speaker types. I didn't click on speaker types. Input. Okay, so we're at delay test. Check net again, just to make sure. Yep, blanked out. That's what I thought. Let's switch back. Delay test, now it's showing. Try shield. I'm sorry if I'm putting off anyone from buying anything with Dirac, but it is what it is. It is just a ball of bugs. It's sad, but that's the way it is. Oh, come on now. Locked up again. You just can't use this thing. That's really ridiculous. Let's Do a refresh from here. Shield is working. AirPlay is working. Okay, good enough. We're going to call it and listen. So this right here is by far the easiest way to dial in your transducers. Just go to the first couple songs of the Bohemian Rhapsody live section. And when the kick drum comes in, I mean, especially during the first song, about 30 seconds in, it's the piano and the kick drum and everything else is pretty quiet. So it's just super easy. It's close. There's something in the processing chain that's adding a little bit more delay than I had before, but it's close. I mean, maybe 10 or 15 milliseconds. The transducers are behind just a tad. So, you hear the bass, dunk, and then you feel it, dunk. So it's just behind. It's like, doo-doo, doo-doo. We're getting there. So now what I have to do, unfortunately, it's not like before where you could literally have the mini DSP up on the computer while it's playing and just tap the up and down arrows to dial it in, or on your AVR, just add or remove feet, dial it in. It's, seconds to do. With this, I have to pick a number, do a completely new run, apply it, retest. If it doesn't work, same thing, pick a number, recalibrate, put it in, test. But, oh my God, something else. I'm gonna have a lot to talk about when I do the review of the system. I just watched the opening of this to get to my kick drum test. Hard things I have never, ever heard in this scene. I wasn't listening for it. Incredible. Just the scenes when they're walking out on stage and then the fly-in to the stadium and then down in and you're inside with over the people. Oh my God, enveloping. And what was insanely intense, I mean, just sells you on the experience. You hear the crowd roaring, you're over it, kind of like that scene right there. And then it cuts to the inside of the office where they're just sitting on the dead phones. And the entire space collapses and you're inside a little quiet, muffled room. And then it goes back out and this room is just filled with sound and crowd. It was incredible. Never had that before, not even close. Anyway, let's get this dialed in and this will complete the actual setup. And then I can do my fine tuning and then work on a video sometime next week on actually how to use it, hopefully. Well, I'm getting there. I'm getting close. I can tell I'm within just a couple, 2 or 3 maybe milliseconds of it being absolutely perfectly dialed in. I'm taking a break. I've been at this for 3 hours. It is so long of a process in between every change. And found some more bugs. And of course, they're throwing me for a loop during this process. One of them, I would make a change, go through the whole rigmarole, 20 minutes later, go to test it. Sounds either worse, like I went the wrong way, or exactly the same. Come to find out, looking in the speaker delays, they were all messed up. I mean, completely messed up. They should have been like in the 40s and 50 milliseconds. Some are 1, 2, 4, 7, 0. I mean, just random numbers. One sub was correct, and that was it. And then it just randomly put in numbers for all the other speakers. And the one sub it was supposed to actually connect to as the master was 0. It just doesn't make any sense. And then it locked up just trying to save a filter. Didn't do anything unusual. I don't know, it was like the 5th or 6th one I had done. In Dirac, said, okay, your filter is ready to use. I'm watching the front panel, and it just stuck there on save, Nothing was responsive. Website wouldn't load, remote wouldn't work. So I had to power it off by the front button, rebooted it, and then I just sent the same filter that I had tested before that sounded wrong, and all of a sudden all the speaker delays are correct. It's just hit or miss. It's really frustrating. This setup is brutal. I don't mean to put people off this, because when it's working, baby, it's working. But I can see why this is probably going to installers and distributors and home theater companies that are doing this for a living. I just can't see the average Joe going through this. And it's got to be the same for the other stuff. I mean, it's not unique to this particular unit. It can't be. Anyway, taking a break. I'll finish it up sometime tonight, get it dialed in. That's my goal for today, and that's definitely the one thing that's going to take the most work. And I have been playing with house curves, while I'm doing all this. May as well. It doesn't make any more time. And I have one question. I'm going to ask a couple people about raising the bass. First of all, there are no built-in filters. I thought there was like a drop-down box, load filter, Harman +2, +6, +8, +10, whatever. No, you got to find them and download them. So I Googled and I found some. They're just text files. So I've been playing with those. But you load the bigger ones. All they're doing is just boosting that signal and starting to clip really soon. So just for kicks, I did a +10 and then raised it up another 5, so a +15, right? And of course the butt kickers, which are also on that boost because they're getting their signal from the sub, well, they were bottoming out and clipping like crazy, as expected, because I didn't change the amp setting or the gain. So I know that it's just boosting the hell out of the signal. The gain knobs on my subs are almost completely down. They're still in the same position from the volume matching, the level matching during calibration. Now I ran them almost all the way up on the other system and a very low signal level, so I got great results out of that. So I don't know how to do that, because I looked in the web UI, all the speaker levels are set to 0. Unless that was some bug. I only checked that once, just come to think of it. And that was before the crash. So that could have been displaying the wrong stuff. I'll check that in a bit, but that's just something else. Anyway, I want to know how to set it with a lower input signal and a higher gain, because you definitely get cleaner bass that way. So, to be continued. And look at that. I'm glad I thought about that. Yep, that was a bug. The same way the speaker distances were screwed up. See, this is what they're supposed to be, and they were all low single digits. I mean, it was just way off. And sure enough, so were the speaker levels. It just happened to be when I had checked it. So 15 and 16 are the subs. And yeah, that is right in line with how I had it on the old system. Almost completely bottom. Yeah, that's cool. That's the exact offset too that Wipeout found. So I'm glad it's confirmation that Wipeout and Dirac so far have been dead nuts accurate. Both of them were finding the exact same things, the same nulls, the same roll-offs, the same gains, the same offsets. That's really cool to know. I mean, I always loved the sound of that Yamaha, and this really does sound similar, just taking it up a notch with more 3D, really. Okay, cool. So, well, I got good news and I got bad news. Bad news. I just spent hours of my time for absolutely nothing. Yeah, I'm on like 3 hours of sleep from last night. And after that last clip, I crashed. I went in, I laid down, started playing a game on my iPad and couldn't even keep my eyes open. Bam, out like a light. Here I am 3 hours later after a power nap, and I grabbed some coffee, hit my computer, and there's a message from Zach, the dealer. Awesome dealer, by the way. If you're looking for a deal on one of these or anything else that's dealer only, email him down in the description and he will hook you up. You don't pay retail. Never be scared of the BS MSRP retail prices that you see about this stuff. You don't pay anywhere close to that. Just hit him up, trust me. Anyway, I'd been telling him just before I went to sleep what I was doing. I was frustrated because it was taking so long. And he says, well, why don't you just change the value in Mini DSP and dial it in? And I'm thinking, well, that's exactly what I used to do, but I have to preserve the ratio of the speakers, so I have to run through the calibration. But that doesn't freaking matter when you're just dialing it in. 1 minute. 1 freaking minute. That's how long it took to dial it in absolutely perfectly. I just connected up to mini DSP, sat here in the chair, I played the scene. Just, there's one part. It's the first song he sings. And I'm telling you right here, he's on the piano and the kick drum starts. All it takes is 10 bars of music. Just rewind that 30-second clip over and over. You see the kick drum, you hear the kick drum, and when you get it right, you don't know there are any transceivers. You just think it's a huge sub hitting you. It just melts. And all you do, I muted the other sub, so I'm just messing with the delay on one of them. Doesn't really matter which one. And you just come down here, you select in the delay, and you just start tapping as it's playing until you reach that point, and you're like, oh, that sounds great. You can verify by going a little further. It should get a little worse. Come back, should disappear. You know, wherever you land, I don't even look at this. I'm just tapping with my finger, looking at the screen, and right at 12.7, boof, that was the perfect point. So now I can turn the other sub back on. That's going to be the gain or the delay that I leave. The butt kicker is off the same path here. So the one sub and this butt kicker are going to be on the same channel. Butt kicker is going to receive everything first. 0 delay out from the processor and 0 delay out from the mini DSP. This is on its own output, remember. So don't worry about this. This one will receive signal second, 12.7 milliseconds later. And then this one third, because it adds just a couple milliseconds from the processor, and then the rest of the speakers. Now all I have to do is run one regular calibration using the curve of my choice. And I already, because I'd been doing all this, and it's a good thing that I did waste so much time doing that, because number one, it allowed me to figure out what the curves sound like and what I might be interested in. I'm probably going to land on the 6. And here's what I'm going to do. Let's see here. All right, before I do that, before I disconnect mini DSP and fire up Dirac Live, I'm going to go ahead and save this and then paste it into the other 3 configs. So that'll be the baseline config for mini DSP. And then I can disconnect it. So when you load in one of the curves, this is the Harman 10 curve out of the box. And you can see it's applying this particular slope. It's pretty much flat from the lowest registers, which interestingly enough, it doesn't go down very far. With REW, you can go into the single digits with control. But this is the curtain, and I don't know if it just doesn't process anything below the curtain and it lets it ride, or it wants it to tail off, or what. But I want the curtain to be as low as possible because my bass is going well below 10. I haven't measured with REW to see what it looks like, but I don't think Dirac Live does anything with single digits. So this last point is down to 10, and I don't know why this line here, target curve line, drops off like that. There's no other point that I can see. But anyway, you can see it's pretty flat right until this point in here, somewhere around 30, and then you get the smooth slope, and then it starts to taper off, and by 200 it's going back flat again for the rest of the frequencies. Now that's very different from the curve that I would typically run with REW. I would be starting my rise like this point here, that it's about 300 hertz. That would be up around 130, 120, somewhere around where the LFE channel starts, where I would typically start it. And it wouldn't be so slopey. Mine would pretty much just be a line. But I'm going to try this out and see how it sounds. Now I do know from testing that for some reason, and it may have to do with the way it's boosting the input, the 10 doesn't sound as natural to my ear. It starts to sound bloated. The 8 was a little better, and I haven't tried the 6. So to load in a target curve, this is just one of the examples I had saved during testing. We want to do all groups. You can apply different curves to different speaker groups. I guess it's recommended, and I would assume you would want to do all groups. So I downloaded the Harman 4, 6, 8, and 10. Even at lower volumes, 10 didn't sound natural to me. It sounded bloated and just wrong. 8 wasn't too much better. You know, it just sounded great with the regular whole flat. So I'm going to try going low. I'm going to try the 6 and just see how that goes. Now what I'll do is turn the sub gain up at the subs to taste. But what I'm keeping with the curve is this slope, this rather shallow slope. And I just want to hear what it sounds like. I'm not worried right now about the crossover or any nulls or phase shifts or anything like that. I just want to hear what this slope generally sounds like. And then I'll tune from there in a later video. Okay, so now I'm going to do my first real multi-point calibration. Got the room placed enough, you know, it doesn't matter if it's totally clean, but the table is where it normally sits, so any interference is going to be there. Mic is in the seated position. I'm going to do this first, just see how everything sounds. That's what I've typically done. Now I'm going to reboot everything because it's stuck again on saving. It's been there for about 5 minutes now. So here's what I did to save some time. I went ahead and put in the correct volume calibrations for everything, and then cleared out all the measurement positions. So we're at this point where we're ready to measure, and it's in the very, what do they call it? Very fine, anyway, the very focused. One sweet spot, right? And then I saved the project file and I called it base. So every time I open this, I don't have to put in those volume things anymore. I can just load base. It brings me right to this point. So I'm ready to do whatever measurements in the future if I want to go ahead and do so, like a reclined position or if I change anything substantial. Okay, let's just kill this. Actually, let me close this first because it's logged into the device. It's done this a number of times, and you have to actually power cycle it. I'm gonna wait. Give it a few seconds to clear. You know, I'm not really sure what the difference standby and off is. It doesn't significantly boot faster in standby. Normally with standby, you think, oh, you know, you hit the remote, it wakes itself up. Takes a few seconds at the most. No, it takes a long time. It still has to do the net starting, and things aren't responsive in the web UI for a good minute. Same as this cold boot kind of thing. It goes through the same rigmarole. So either I'm missing a setting and there's some kind of fast boot, or it's just a really complicated startup no matter what you start from. But I'll let this go. It takes about a minute. Now, when I'm not looking forward to this, I got to reprogram everything in Harmony. This is going to be the first device to come on. Usually I would set it to the TV, because when the TV comes on, even in its standby, it takes a few seconds before you can actually see whatever signal source is coming through. But this is by far the slowest thing in the chain at this point. And even when you get to the screen, things aren't fully available. You can tell when you're loading the web UI or trying to use a remote control, or I'd start to play a movie and there's like no audio for a good 5 to 10 seconds, which only happened a couple times, but it's quite a long boot up process. Now we can refire up Dirac Live, and this is where I'll be sitting for the measurements. I'm completely out of the sound field, off in a side hallway here. And we'll connect. Mic 1. Oop, I forgot. All I have to do is load project, base. All of these should be set for me. Now I hope we don't run into that volume bug by loading a project. That would get me every other time I'd start. See, it starts at 50. It says it's at 50, but it's not. It's really at -90, and you have to hit this and just move it a little bit for it to actually snap into place. And wow, now this is not loading. It's never done this before. What does it say on the front? It just says Dirac measurement. Wonderful. Okay, well, I guess I'll add reboot the PC to the things to do list. Let me try just relaunching and reconnecting. I swear, between the bugs in the processor itself and Dirac, you really have to know what you're doing. I mean, or like me, not know what you're doing, but know to expect some weird things. Let's try that again. Load base. See, I didn't do anything different. Oh, that's interesting. I thought I had zeroed that out. Let me check volume calibration. That's all I'm concerned about. Okay, so it did pull these in. Now let me do a quick test. If I hear good pink noise, that means that set correctly. If it's super quiet, I know it didn't, and that would be another thing to check. You know what, I'm gonna be checking it anyway, just because it's a bug I've seen here over and over. Sure as shit, that is not 50, that is 90. So watch this. I wonder if the arrows work. Just gonna bump the up arrow here. Right arrow maybe? I'll type 1. Yep, there we go. So whenever you even load a saved project, come in here and move that master output, and that explains why those runs were giving me those weird speaker volumes right there, because this was throwing the calculations off. Son of a bitch. Well, that's a big bug, but at least it's identifiable. Okay, so no need to resave or anything, because it's not the profile that's the problem. It's this master output in Dirac not respecting what the actual saved volume is. Okay, so now we can actually go ahead and do a test. So I'm glad I narrowed that down, because it was really bugging me. And I hadn't been back to that screen, you know, because all I would do is come in when I would doing all the testing is manually slide those to what I knew they were supposed to be, but I never tested the sound because I knew what they were supposed to be. But I had forgotten about that. Okay, tightly focused. We'll go to measure. It wants 9 points. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to run through. What I am curious about is all that calculation. Up until this point, it's only been one measurement. I wonder if that is multiplied by how many times I do it, or if that's all just wrapped up into one calculation. That's going to suck if that is multiplied by all those things. That will mean that processing is going to go from a couple minutes to maybe 30. And if you're doing the wide with 17, it could be like an hour for that processing on a fast laptop. Yow. Okay, well, we'll find out in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and shut up and start measuring. And then I'll move the mic around. All right, there is a complete set of measurements for the first time. Now let's see what we have to work with. It took a while there after I clicked the button. I didn't think it registered. And it was just thinking. Never did that with a single measurement. And this is taking about the same time. Okay, now we can load our curve that we want to work with. And yes, as expected, you can see that using multi-point the predicted results are way better, way tighter. So I loaded the Harman 6 just to see what it's going to do for us. Set the crossover at 80, again, trial and error. Open up the curtains, and now we're going to do calculate. And hopefully, like I said, it only takes a couple minutes like it did before, and not a half an hour. Oh, that's new. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's definitely taking longer in this part. Anyway, I'll come back after it finishes. So step 2 is taking the same amount of time, nice and quick. That's cool. And so is step 3. All right, well, that's awesome. Looks like it's going to be nice and quick as long as you have a good laptop to work with. Yep, that wasn't anything more than a couple minutes. And I got this little tiny null right about 45. What we can do is play with the crossover and just see what happens, see if we can get any better predicted response. But remember, we have to verify in REW what it actually looks like. This is still a predicted. It may be better. It may be worse. You don't know. I think that both this and REW are going to be using the mic in exclusive mode, so I couldn't have both up at the same time. I would love to just be able to switch over to the REW window and run a sweep. No, I don't want to chance it because I've spent time in this already. I want to finish this first. I'll test that later. But in any case, when you're done, you definitely want to check your results in REW for real-time results. Plus, I'm going to be dialing up the subs at the subs using gain to taste, and I'll just do it by ear. I know what I like and how certain songs especially are supposed to sound. So that's what I'll do with those. And then when I'm done, I'll do an REW sweep to see how it compares to YPOW, because I had some interesting results. In fact, I can show you that right now. I'll go into more detail in another video, but so here are the results. Where did I put it? Of what sounded right in my room. This is measured in REW just before I unplugged everything. This was the best YPOW results. You might notice that is a hell of a house curve. From 75 to 100. That's a 25 dB house curve as measured by REW. Now what's interesting is it did not sound like a 25 dB house curve. It sounded like it should be about a 10, 15 at the most. 25 dBs is huge. And it just didn't sound that huge. But this is the interesting part. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to music, watching a movie, whatever, knowing this is the house curve. And the bass just sounds natural to me, sitting in the seat. But this back wall is shaking so violently that my acoustic panels are flopping and vibrating. They're on big L brackets. So they can move like this, right? They're doing this. The whole wall is doing this behind me. And I can't hear a thing. Dishes in the kitchen, inside the cabinets. I have things on the wall, way down in that little nook thing down there, that vibrate out. That whole wall vibrates. Guest bathroom, down that hall in that wing. The outside wall, the mirror in the guest bathroom, way back there, vibrates. And I'm not feeling it or hearing it right here. So my thought was there's something up with the phase that I'm just not seeing in REW. Because if it takes this much to sound normal sitting in this seat, and yet just from my testing here with this processor, it sounds good with just a few dB up. So I'm really curious as to, number one, what the problem was here that I never detected, and what this is doing differently. I don't know if I'll ever find out, but that has been bugging me since I pulled this curve to see what was really going on. But I have to say, this PSA subs handled it like a champ. And this was at moderate volumes. This wasn't anywhere near what I normally listen to. They were hitting 120, 125 dB without even breathing hard watching a big movie. Now I'll show you guys this. I have no clue how to read this. This is the impulse response chart. And obviously it's predicted, but I'm just looking at it going, oh, pretty colors. So whoever knows exactly what they're looking at here, please inform us. Let's see what the mains look like. Now this looks familiar. Ideally, you want one big bump where there was signal and then nothing, or as nothing as possible in real life. And I would think you have to knock some of this noise off to really see what's going on. It's too much on the screen there, but it doesn't look terrible to me. These are often reflection points, like the table, especially the center. Let's see what the center looks like. And you can correlate the milliseconds to feet away from the original signal. So you got 3 declining right there. Could be the table. I'm not sure. But anyway, cool looking charts. And here's the other cool thing about Dirac. You can set separate crossovers, of course, for every group, or ungroup them and do every specific speaker. Not that you would want to do that. But here in the center, we see we've got a null, a pretty good one, at right around 50. And the crossover is set at 70. That's lower than I ever ran. Let's try bumping it up to 80. And then recalculating and see what happens. I want to see what the mains look like real quick. Oh, crap. Well, once you change anything, all those predicted go away, I guess. The mains, what did I set it to? 80. Okay, so let's see what the other stuff is set to. Surrounds 70. Well, I'll be sure to check next time this runs through before I change anything, just to make sure there aren't any nulls. That's what you really want to get rid of. And just adjust the crossover, run it again, see if that predicted null is going to go away. I don't mind bumping it up to 80 or 90. That's totally fine. I usually run that anyway. And done with that next predicted calculation. So the surround's here with this crossover at 70. Yeah, there's still a weird looking null there in one of them. It's interesting that it doesn't show like an average. I guess that doesn't really matter. Let's see what the changes to front, left, and center did. I'm still not sure why it shows the colored lines as the mains for green and pink below the crossover point. It shows this null forming here, but it's below the crossover by a good amount, about 65. Let's see what the base is looking like. That's fine. That's really good. So I'm not too concerned about that null below it. We can maybe try 85, see what happens. Center still has that bit of a null, and that may be seating position at 50, and it hasn't moved a bit. And what, it's at 80 now? Yeah, it's still at 80, so that is probably seating position, proximity to the back wall. It's pretty narrow, so I'm not really worried about it. And it's pretty low in the base, so that's crossover anyway. Yeah, who gives a crap? That's fine. I keep forgetting about the crossover because that line throws me. Usually, you know, in REW, for example, if you have a crossover set like that, it follows it in the predicted response. So let me just set the rest of the crossovers. Let me look at the Atmos real quick. That's all fine. That's all below the crossover. I'll just set them all to 80 for consistency. They're little 8-inch, no, don't right click. They're little 8-inch drivers. Always sounded good at 80. We'll do the same to the surround. do a recalculate, verify nothing looks horribly wrong with the mains and base, and set a filter. One more round, should be it. Oh crap, I forgot to try 85 with the mains. I'll do that next. Oh wait, I can cancel. Keep forgetting there is a cancel button. Stop, thank you. Back up to mains. Oh, I can't see what I'm doing. There we go. Control 1, 2, 3, 4 is gonna be your friend. Bump that up to 85. And then recalculate after it finishes this. So the results back with the crossover at 85 for the mains. Not happy about that null there. That's way too close to the crossover, and when I'm playing in 2-channel mode, we don't want anything like that because that will definitely register. Let's try 90. Much better, much better. These two nulls here I had always gotten, and that's more of the boundary to the rear walls where the speakers are. You can see that's one and that's the other, but the other corresponding speaker is helping the nulls. And I know in REW, when they're summed, it's a nice smooth response. That's exactly what I got at 90 in REW. So I will set the mains to 90, everything else to 80, and that's what I was running before with great results. And that's a nice, tight, predicted at least, measurement. Now, I'm going to create my first real filter. When possible, I like to name and describe stuff so I can come back to it in the future and recreate or change off of it when necessary. So I'll just add this to slot 1. Oh, you know, I want to make this seated position. Just in case, I'll run through reclined after this and just see if I can hear a big enough difference to care. Now what I'm really hoping is we don't get that bug again and it sticks on saving. We know from experience not to go by the prompts here on the screen. So it's exporting it. It's got to be going to the cloud at this point. So it's sending a big old text file out to the Dirac servers somewhere. And this is taking noticeably longer. So it must have been transferring a lot more data with the multi-point. So this is a BS message. The process is not complete and not ready to use. You gotta wait. You gotta watch on your processor. Focus. Alexa, turn on the media cabinet. So there it's receiving. My hand is not that steady when you're zoomed way in like this. And now it's saving. So cross your fingers. It should only take a minute or so. If it goes longer than that, you know, you gotta probably restart it. Yay, it finished. That was really quick too. That's what's supposed to happen. That took maybe 10 seconds. So now we can go in our various inputs that we would like to assign that to and select the new filter. Switch screens, come back, make sure it takes. And it did. Okay, we're good. Let's do Apple TV, which I think is game. Man, I wish you could do this globally. And that is still buggy. All right, go out, come back in. There it is. Select it. Okay, I'm going to do this for the rest of my inputs. The Fire Stick, Bluetooth, AirPlay. I think that's the only 5 I use. And then we'll play. And just quickly confirming that speaker distances are indeed in the correct ranges. We also want to make sure that levels aren't at 0 like that bug was before. We're good there. And subs are at -6 and -6.5, well in the clean range. So we can bump that up to taste at the subs. Okay, looking good. Oh, and here's how the cabinet looks now with all the lights dimmed and blacked out. That looks fine. It's actually brighter. Hold on a second. Let me show you what it looks like in real life because the camera is auto-exposing. Right there. That's what it looks like to my eye. So that's very nice. I can just read the display. It's bright enough to read from about 11 feet from it, 12 if I sit back in the seat, and I can just see the blue of the amp. It's actually still brighter on the phone than real life, and I can barely see the red and green dots that aren't showing up on the phone. It's interesting how sensors show things. So the dots now appear on screen as they do to my eyes, and the blue is more like that. Okay, so those worked really well. Oh, wow. Okay. If you watched my last videos, you know what an impact it was just out of the box, zero tuning. Now that it's dialed in, now that Dirac Live, however you say it, is dialed in and set and calibrated, and I have the bass exactly where it needs to be, a surprisingly small bump. There was definitely, without a doubt, something going on with the Yamaha tuning. Not that it's a fault with the Yamaha, but there's something going on because I'm getting totally different bass. Same overall amount, but totally different bass, even different than the untuned. So just quickly running through, I have not run through anything but a few quick demo scenes just to dial in the amount of bass because I know how things are supposed to sound and the timbre of people's voices and all that kind of good stuff. Got it dialed in really quickly. Only had to come up 2 dots, 2.5 dots on each sub gain, and it was done. Okay, real quick differences I'm hearing between Dirac Live on and off in this one particular same scene, the Ready Player One. Same race scene, same demo clip that I was doing because I'm very familiar with it. And I'm hearing some very new things even now with Dirac on versus off. One, the surround channels are just popping to life. I mean, effects are so varied side to side behind my head and in the actual speaker, and it's really affecting the Atmos bubble. You remember how I said before I was listening for that coin scene and I didn't get it in the first one and all of a sudden I got it in the second one? The first one is doing it now and the second one is off the chain. The coins are just, they're spreading out across you in the room. There's still an immense 3D bubble, but here's the weird thing. The bass is almost omnipresent. I mean, it was before, but it's like the subs just completely melted into the bubble itself. It's not like you've got a lot of bass coming from the front of the movie theater. It's just here. And it's just a tiny amount. It's really strange. I don't know if that's the impulse control. I don't know if it's better phasing because I have each sub completely separately controlled. I have no idea. I'm not an expert. I gotta put the plants back. But oh my God, it is just gorgeous. So I can't wait for tomorrow because I'm just gonna start demoing stuff. Music, all my demo clip scenes. I got about 2 hours of clips to run through that I'm very familiar with. And I'm gonna do a video on all of that so you guys can, hopefully if you have the movies I'm gonna show you or describe to you at least, you can listen for some of these specific things that I'll talk about in the scenes. But wow, super happy. No joke, this setup was pretty much a nightmare for any beginner. For Joe Schmo, I mean, you're gonna need help. That's all there is to it. You're not gonna know what to expect with these weird bugs. You know, I'm sure it's gonna get better in the future. That's without a doubt. But right now, I'm not trying to scare you guys off. Absolutely recommend this to anybody. Some people are simply gonna need help setting up. That's all there is. But it's a one-time thing. Now I can just enjoy it. Besides doing a lot more testing just for cool videos and stuff like that. But I've got this baseline dialed in now, and I did mark the subs, gain knobs, for where they are in the correct calibration point, so I can go back to that at any time. That was important. Oh man, after midnight again. I'm a workaholic, but I love it. Okay guys, I think I'm gonna edit this tonight. Why not? I'm jacked. Shout out again to Zach. All the info is down below, all the links to everything I used that you can do yourself. I know a lot of people already are contacting me and commenting that, hey, they're building their own. They saw this and they really like the results. So cool. I hope you guys have great builds. You have a lot to look forward to. I am very, very happy with the way this came out. No drawbacks once it's actually in here and installed. It's just awesome. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. Lots more coming. We'll see you next time.